Hello and welcome to my presentation that is about the effect of physical activity, self-image, close relationships, and depression on subjective happiness. I'm Daniel Lewis, and this is for the Research Methods in Psychology 3090 class. To start off, since happiness is something that is difficult to completely define on its own, we're going to be using a subjectivist approach to happiness with the subjective happiness scale to measure how happy people are, which lets people be the judge of their own happiness and considers it from their own perspective. We're going to be comparing their scores with their answers to questions to measure the 4 different aspects of people's lives that we've chosen, being physical activity, self-image, close relationships, and depression. Our research is intended to answer the question of how do people's experiences align with their self-reported measure of happiness. This is going to be measured and compared to using a self-report survey that asks people questions that have to do with their subjective happiness, as well as these 4 aspects of their lives. We hypothesized at the beginning of this that physical activity, self-image, and positive close relationships will be positively correlated with people's happiness, and that depression will be negatively correlated with people's happiness. And what we did is that we did a self-report survey through the students in this class. There are about 16 total people, and everyone was strongly encouraged to complete the survey. This was done through using the subjective happiness scale to measure subjective happiness, and we compared that with the answers to the Stanford Brief Activity Survey to measure physical activity, the Stanford Spark Tools Psychological Well-Being Scale to measure self-acceptance, purpose in life, and positive relations with others. For self-image, we used questions that were meant to ask about close relationships and sociometric status, and we used the Patient Health Questionnaire 9 to quantify depression symptoms. Our results for this survey were that people who do more physical activity at work tended to be happier, as that had a small to medium positive effect. Also that people who did less physical activity during their free time tended to be happier. That had a small negative effect, small negative correlation effect between that and their happiness. Also that people who scored higher on measures of self-acceptance tended to be happier, as that had a medium positive effect. Also, people who scored higher on feeling like they had a purpose in life tended to be happier, as that had a positive medium effect, as that seemed to have a positive medium effect on people's happiness. We answered questions about, and took questions from the psychological well-being scale about positive relations with others, and that didn't seem to have a relationship with happiness, though our questions on close interpersonal positive relationships seemed to have a medium-sized effect, positive effect on people's happiness. And their sociometric status tended to have as people felt more respected and like they contributed more to their community, that had a small positive effect on their happiness. And for the depression screening questions, people who scored higher on the depression screening questions tended to be less happy. The limitations for this survey and this study was that it was a very small sample size with only 16 people in the class. Future study would be better if we had more people answering the survey, to have a better average so that outliers didn't strongly impact the correlations. Also, since there were only a few 3 to 4 questions for each scale, it might be better if we had more questions per scale with a little bit of a longer survey, so that the answers to questions on that scale also didn't strongly impact the average scores. And here are references, and thank you for coming to my presentation. Good night.